Hey ladies, I mean, if we're going to be real, this channel is definitely directed at women over a certain age. So I might as well just act like that is the case, because it is the case. Free-spirited women, that is. Absolutely, for sure. If you are a self-actualizing guy, if you're that kind of guy, I think you would like it here. I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, like, ultimately. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why we feel invisible as women over a certain age, and what we can do to use that invisibility to our advantage. But staying tuned to the end, because I'm also going to be talking about 3 ways that we can increase our net visibility. No. Editing Stevie here, which you can tell because I've got my editor's hat on. Actually, it's gotten kind of chilly here, so it's keeping my head warm, and it just feels really good. I'm also wearing the grandma core too, which, you know, if you ever have wondered about appropriation, here's a pretty good example of appropriation. So I'm a grandma, so I think I get to wear grandma core, but that's not necessarily true, because while grandmas inspired the aesthetic, it kind of excludes grandmas, because they say pretty much like nobody over 30 should do something like that, should rock the grandma core. But, you know, I'm a rebel. The reason why I'm interrupting myself is because this video ended up being too long. I cannot do the 3 things that we can do to leverage our invisibility. That's going to be actually in another video, so it will be available up there. So finish this video and then watch the next video. Okay, back to our video. To the end, because I'm also going to be talking about 3 ways. Oh, yes. And then there was one more thing. Do wait to the end. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is kind of controversial, and I want to know your thoughts about it. We don't lose our net visibility. We are just losing the spotlight of the male gaze for several reasons, and it's not just about appearance. When I say the male gaze, this is what I mean. I asked ChatGPT for the definition, and this is what it gave me.
The male gaze refers to the depiction of women in media from a male, often objectifying perspective, where female characters are presented primarily for the visual pleasure of men, reinforcing gender power dynamics.
The issues with the male gaze is that it makes us see ourselves through the imagined perspective of somebody else. We start performing to that lens and becoming more like puppets instead of our autonomous selves. So for me, myself, as I get older, I am not really opposed to diminishing the male gaze upon me. I also really like the idea of having more control over my visibility, which means I can still use the male gaze to my advantage, but I can also turn it off. I was talking about that the other day while I was walking through the woods. So take it away, hiking Stevie. So think of it as like going from automatic to stick shift. So when we're in automatic, when we have automatic transition, we are just totally desirable, and everybody is staring at us and looking at us, and we have no control over that. Like, honestly, like, you can go without makeup, you can walk around in a bag, they'll find you. The spotlight will find you. I'm now in the middle of a creek because I'm just trying to get a little privacy. So I came out, did a little creek. So not being able to control my visibility was a real problem for me when I was younger. I wanted to be a writer, and I kind of fancied myself as like Ernest Hemingway or Henry Miller. Like, I don't know. For lack of female role models, there were role models, but they weren't writing in public spaces. But Ernest Hemingway wrote in public spaces. He wrote about writing in public spaces in Movable Feast. But it was just such a fantasy, you know, to go to this coffee house and just be the writer in residence and sit there writing while being respected and left alone. That doesn't happen when you're a young woman. Which is why writers like Virginia Woolf wrote about a room of her own. Very frustrating. That was a time when I could have really used invisibility. Some people would say, well, why go to a public place if you don't want to be public? Well, I have many reasons. One of them is, you know, like that fantasy, that whole like stepping into a persona, which helped me write. That helped me get things done. The other thing was, like, if you have a creative block, one of the best things you can do is just get out of your house, get into like a novel situation. It puts you in a creative mode because it gets everything firing. So the white noise of the coffee house crowd really helped to focus me. And, you know, getting away from home, getting away from chores and other distractions. There's lots of reasons why to want to go out in public and be left alone. But every time I would go to a coffee house by myself, it wouldn't be but 5 or 10 minutes before I was interrupted, before I would just be deep in writing or maybe deep in reading or whatever. I was obviously focused. And in fact, I had to make a point to look very focused to try to avoid being interrupted. But it didn't matter. I was interrupted anyway. And that frustrated me so much. When you are writing creatively, the thoughts are kind of fleeting. Like, you have to kind of act on them or else they go. So when that happened, I felt almost like I was, like they stole something from me. And it was so hard to get back into it because now anger was at the forefront of my mind. So bright. So basically, there's a lot to be gained by having invisibility. It can give us peace, self-knowledge, a sense of agency, and ultimately that means freedom. I want you to think about this. Do we really want that male gaze anyway? I mean, do we want it as much as we once did? Like, it made sense at one point, but in this point of my life, like the idea of being sexualized and objectified and being deemed useful by like random strangers, especially on the internet, I don't know. That's not really fun for me. Is it fun for you? I mean, ask yourself seriously, is that really fun for you? Maybe I have too much of an active imagination, but when I think about like random strangers thinking about me with their male gaze and thinking about the things that they're thinking about, it actually makes me feel violated. On top of that, my postmenopausal hormone profile, it doesn't crave that kind of attention anymore, despite society trying to convince me otherwise. Why? Society understands that we become dangerous to the status quo when we are not performing to the male gaze. Because the male gaze is it's the carrot of desirability that is dangled in front of us to motivate us to behave and to consume and to do all the things that our society needs us to do. Do you remember Bridesmaids? Like, I'm sorry. What happens when we stop loving carrots? How do we train a dog that no longer likes treats? What if your kid no longer likes electronics? You can't take them away from them and then sell it back to them with the price being good behavior, right? Okay, so let's get into the 5 reasons why we feel invisible as women over a certain age. The number one, which is not really number one, it's just the first one that I'm going to mention, is becoming an empty nester. Like, this jacks with us in all kinds of ways. Our roles change. We start to feel like we've lost our purpose. And that kind of leads to a sort of lack of confidence that bleeds into all areas of our life. It's an adjustment. You're down, you're sad, you miss your kids, there's a loneliness, a quiet table instead of a crowded one. And, you've come to the end of an era. It's a hard time in our lives. No doubt about it. I personally feel that it's even harder because it's unnatural. I don't feel that it's natural for families to separate. I think historically, like before the industrial age, we didn't do that as much. Families stayed intact for generations and generations and generations. And generational wisdom trickled down. I think in that kind of world, our roles continued. They didn't just abruptly stop. They continued, although they changed. They changed over time. But we never had that major rite of passage that happens when we become empty nesters. It is a rite of passage. And rites of passage are difficult. That's why they're rites of passage. You go through hard challenges, and those challenges show you new things about yourself, different aspects of yourself, show you what you can do and what you can go through. And you come out on the other side usually empowered, hopefully, not traumatized, but empowered. And my best advice to you is to just lean into that passage. Don't reject what you're going through, but don't wallow in it either. Let it run its course and let it make you over from the inside out. The other advice I would give, but I think it's a little late for this, before your kids leave the house, get into things, into hobbies, or start working on your dream vocation or whatever it is that you want to do. And get into it so much that you sometimes get annoyed that your kids kind of take you from it. I know that sounds awful, but it will give you something to look forward to when you have more time. The number 2 reason why you might feel like you are becoming invisible as you get older, it's a thing called symbolic annihilation. This is what happens when certain groups of people are either absent or underrepresented or misrepresented in media and popular culture. This happens to us a lot. And historically, it's been worse. It's actually getting better. So an example of symbolic annihilation is the fact that female actors get less roles as they get older compared to their male counterparts. So when we see fewer older women on the Hollywood screen, we internalize the idea that we matter less. But this is just an illusion. It's not real. And it's a curse that we can break simply by showing up. I mean, we have social media now. So I think this is one of the reasons why it's changing. We're not just prey to Hollywood executives. We can actually show up ourselves. We can start YouTube channels. I really got into social media stuff when I joined the Silver Sister hashtag. And I was over there on Instagram doing all my Pro Age and Silver Sister stuff. Because the honest to God truth is that we are at the height of our power and we just need to claim it. It's not just by showing up that we break this narrative, because we also have to show up to ourselves. We have to be very honest with ourselves. You know, I go on and on and on and on about this, but this is really important to me. I really believe this. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go get a candle and light a candle to your showing up. And the way that you're going to show up, especially to yourself, is that you're going to declare your desires, your heart's true desires. So light a candle to your heart's true desire and commit to being honest about your preferences and dislikes. And it could be like, it doesn't have to be deep. Like, one thing that I recently declared to myself was that I didn't actually like the jets in a jacuzzi. Everybody likes the bubbles in a jacuzzi, right? Well, you know what? Guess what? I don't. Even though I always said I did. But I really don't. They're loud. They're not relaxing. They cause me sensory overload. I don't like them. I can't hear people talk. I have to like lean in to them. It's just very distracting. I do not like jacuzzi jets. And it was hard to kind of come to that realization, because everybody loves jacuzzi jets. Nobody ever says, I don't like those. So you kind of enter into a sort of groupthink, even though it's your own desires that you're talking about. Everybody should know what they truly, really want. But that's not always hard to tap into because of things like that. So, number 3, there's a lot of pressure for us to soften our look. Have you ever noticed that? I mean, like some of the beauty advice out there, lighten our hair, make it softer, more layers, soften our edges, soften the lines, use Photoshop, blur our entire image, soften our voices, don't be too loud, wear softer clothes, don't wear like straight across bangs that's too edgy. It makes you look harsh. We don't want to look harsh. Be elegant. We all want to be elegant, ladies, right? How to be elegant. I mean, that's kind of basically we're being told to fade. I'm not saying that soft is bad, not at all. I'm just saying it's not something that we necessarily have to do. It doesn't have inherent value over anything else. So I was watching a video the other day, and a woman was talking about the Kibbe body types. And she was talking about, I think it's flamboyant naturals. I think that's what I am. I'm a flamboyant natural, whatever that is. Maybe I'll put a link to that video. And she was saying that body types like me, we naturally have, I guess, an elegant body type. And we shouldn't dress it up with too much lace or ruffles or, be too feminine, not over the top, because that takes away from our elegance. But I was thinking like, but why do I have to be elegant? Because like inside, I'm not really an elegant person. I really am not. I tend to be a little, over the top sometimes. I kind of put it all out there and I don't restrain myself. That's kind of what elegance is. It's like restraint. And I don't restrain myself. I'm just not an elegant person. So why would I want to wear clothes that didn't reflect my lack of elegance? I mean, there's a lot of limiting advice out there for us. We are told that we shouldn't call attention to ourselves after a certain age. We shouldn't wear mini skirts, or we shouldn't wear fashion that looks like we're trying too hard. What are we trying too hard to do? I don't know. A lot of women impose this belief system onto other women, and that just sucks. We need to stop doing that. Because other women take it to heart. They believe it. And you know why? Because we are influential and powerful. When we tell another woman that she's not doing it right, they believe us. So we got to stop doing that. We are systematically being told to take the small pill every day. Just as our power is waxing, it's not waning. We are truly stepping into our power. It doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman. The system is designed to prevent people from stepping into too much power. Power that is not useful to the status quo. We inherently have more power as older people because we have less fear. We give less FUCKs. Our children can take care of themselves now. And hopefully we have more time to think about things, ponder life and kind of determine, what our own purpose is. A lot of us become more purpose-based as we get older. In fact, the whole society is becoming a little bit more purpose-based. And I think a lot of that has to do with an aging society. We know that we can handle some crap. we know what we can do. We know what we're not willing to do. That when I say that we are systemically being kept from our power, I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory. I'm talking more about behavioral conditioning, where behaviors that support the status quo are encouraged and those that don't are discouraged. So back to number 3, because I kind of digressed. The constant pressure to soften our look as we get older literally causes us to blur our own lines, our own edges. It's like we kind of erase ourselves. And this is a physical manifestation of symbolic annihilation. It has a ring to it, doesn't it? Men are attracted to people who are attracted to them. So if we are less attracted to them, we will be less noticeable as well, at least to men. If we don't like men as much, if we are not as interested in men, and we probably aren't, we are probably not as interested in them as we were, when we were 18. Because we're not as attracted to them, they're probably not going to be as attracted to us. I haven't tested this hypothesis, but I don't know. It tracks to me. Let me know in the comments what you think. Oh, and there's all kinds of reasons why we might not be as attracted to them. Maybe it's because we don't have the raging hormones that we once had when we were 16. Or maybe we don't need the same kind of support from them that we used to need. So, we don't perform to that need anymore. That said, there are some benefits to this because we don't need them so much, and because we're not so horny, we're more likely to just love them for who they are. We're more likely to pick someone based on so many other characteristics that are much deeper, than being a provider or being a provider of carrots. Number 5. Now this one has less to do with us being women and more to do with us being of a certain generation. And I'm kind of gonna speak about Gen X. And that is changes in society. They just generally make older people feel irrelevant. It happens to all people. Suddenly, the technology isn't created for us. It's created for another generation. And when we are used to the world explicitly serving us, when we are privileged in that way, we notice when it no longer does. And that can make us feel irrelevant. But we're not irrelevant. It's just the focus is just shifted. My strategy is to kind of try and figure this out. I kind of study the younger generations because I want to figure out what they're all about and try to kind of get into their mindset so I can actually understand life a little bit from their point of view. And that also helps me understand a whole lot of other things. Because Gen Z and Gen Alpha, well, their internal reward punishment system, their dopamine, the dopamine circuit? I don't know. It's being shaped and hyper developed by social media. I think that those generations really actually have a keen understanding of human emotions, to the point that emotions are almost like the keys on a piano that they can play. I don't think Gen X is really great at emotional nuance and stuff. I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. We tend to just be frank and we don't really live in our emotions. Like, I don't really live in my emotions. I tend to be a pretty logical person. And I think it makes us harder to understand. Oh, there's a cardinal. I think it makes it harder to understand where the younger generations are coming from. And technology is built around their brains now. It's not built around ours, so we have to, it's going to seem less intuitive to us. And that kind of makes us feel like we're no longer being catered to. And that might make us feel a little bit more irrelevant and invisible. So I also have like this bonus thought. Something to think about, a bonus food for thought. Most men never actually get to be objects of desire. They never get the male gaze, so to speak. And I think they're more socially conditioned to be subjects, which means that they have to work. To get attention, they have to do something. They have to do something good. They have to do something. They have to like mow the lawn, or, you know, play sports and do well. This is how they like get attention, and this is why they brag a lot. We're pretty hard on them for this, but this is what they have to do. They're not objects of desire. They're more like subjects of desire. So they have to do something to get, the carrot. And I think there's a lot of men out there who would actually like to be objectified, which I think is exemplified in like the rise of the gym bros. I don't know if you get on like Instagram or if you know about this stuff. Chances are your algorithm is very different than mine, but there are a lot of guys out there who are spending a lot of time in the gym and taking lots of selfies, mirror selfies of themselves, and just they're just trying to be objects of desire, I guess. They're kind of terrible because they're kind of like mean to other men. They're saying, I'm going to get your girl because I'm hot and you're not. It's like, it's a terrible thing. And I think a lot of these men, they just lack emotional intelligence, and they can be jealous. They can be jealous of our ability to be objects of desire. And that jealousy can make them act nasty. Like they might want to bring us down a notch or put us in our place. If we're showing up as beautiful, they might be like, "Oh, you're old." That's because they're jealous that we could still be objects of desire, and they want that. They're envious of that. If you've made it this far, please don't forget to like this video, maybe subscribe. It will increase my visibility, which will increase yours, because we will attract a bunch of like-minded people to this space. And that is my goal. And I will see you in the next video. Bye. Say that I should be in the follies, hot tamales. Say that I got a pair of eyes just like old Svengali. I confess that I possess the sweetest charms in town. And unless I miss my guess, the boys all follow me around. I could make a music master drop his fiddle, make a bald-headed man part his hair in the middle.